Hey, what's up guys and gals? My name is Rick9G. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about Three's Company, more specifically about the character Ralph Furley, played by the amazing Don Knotts. Now, I will be comparing him, of course, to the Ropers, who are played by Audra Lindley and Norman Fell. I hope you like videos just like this. If you do, don't forget to subscribe. Many of you constantly watch my channel, which is amazing, but if you don't subscribe, then it's impossible for this channel to grow. So if you hit that like button, subscribe, it goes a long way and it's absolutely free to do so. So I appreciate it. I thank you ahead of time. Let's get right to it, guys and gals. Now today I'm going to be talking about the appearance, or that is the switching between having the Ropers on Three's Company to the character of Ralph Furley. Of course, we had two characters that left the show because the actors had their own spin-off. We won't get into that. I made another video on that myself, but I just want to focus on, as I said, Don Knotts and Ralph Furley, who took over, quote unquote, the Ropers role. Not playing them, but playing another character entirely, and having to literally move the show on with characters that he never really met, never interacted before. That's not an easy task, and I'm here to tell you that my belief is that Mr. Furley was better than the Ropers. That is his character versus two others, the Ropers. And I have many different reasons for it. I'm going to get right into the first one right now. And that is Don Knotts. No one can argue that Don Knotts, his stardom, was unmatched. Comparing him to Audra and Norman, it is just night and day. Of course, Norman did star in a lot of other, guest star in a lot of movies and things before, as well as Audra. It did not compare to the stardom of Knotts. Remember, he came from the Andy Griffith Show, being essentially one of the main people in the entire cast. So he was already very, very well known in TV, moving on to another TV show only about a decade later. And also he starred in a lot of movies, his own movies. Many really good movies, The Shakiest Gun in the West, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, many more, which I won't list on here. But the point is, he had his own movies, and so his stardom had to be really recognized. It was over what the characters of the Ropers had, and that really spoke a lot to who he was and the power of the character. Secondly, we must not put down or put aside the fact that he had to fill in the role coming in the middle of, well, that is in the beginning, around the beginning of the 4th season of the show, basically in the middle of the running of the series, and said, hey, you have to now replace these characters. That's so hard to do. You didn't have to replace one character, but two. That is a crazy amount of pressure. Now, he was, of course, acting veteran, and so it was a task that he could take, and I would say he accomplished that. But think about this, that's hard enough to replace one character. You have many, of course. Suzanne Summers was replaced by two characters throughout the course of the show, and they did a pretty good job, but imagine replacing two, and yep, Don Knotts really did it. Since I'm challenging you, quote unquote, to change my mind about this, let me know in the comments below what you think with your own reasons. They could be numbered just like mine, have conflicting reasons, or maybe you agree with me. But as we get to the third one, this one is super important, and that is his physical comedy. Now, if you look at the Ropers and their characters, yes, here and there they did physical things, but there's a big difference between comedy that comes from dialogue and comedy that comes from physically being able to do things. And Don Knotts was one of the king of that at that time, along with, of course, John Ritter. Now, I think he complemented John Ritter very well because he had that physical side to him. The way he would contort his face, his eyes, all that type of thing, as well as his body, his movements, the way he would move around, how he would change his posture, things like that. That was something that Norman, as well as Audra, really didn't possess in the show. Now, the next reason is kind of tied together. The previous one having to do with the physical comedy, but here I want to stress that he not only was a physical comedian, but he was also a spoken, and his dialogue was funny as well. Now, we don't want to diminish that because physical comedy is a gift unto itself. That's something that Chaplin did and so forth, but he was primarily known for his physical comedy. But now we have Don Knotts, who did physical comedy, but as well as had great dialogue, and he was funny through his dialogue. That's something that the Ropers did not have. They were more a duo that focused on spoken comedy, or that is comedy in their dialogue. Again, these are all reasons where Don Knotts just goes a little bit ahead of the Ropers. Moving on to the next reason, his loud outfits. And I say loud because they were colorful. You've seen them throughout this video already. I don't have to go through all of them, but they were just eye-catching. They were just something that made his character very special, as opposed to the Ropers and their drab kind of outfits that were very subtle, or very brownish, and were very muted. Furley was a big type character, and that's what Three's Company kind of needed at that point. And in fact, he kept the ratings steady, which is pretty amazing to do for a show that's already in the 4th season, replacing 2 of the main cast, putting in someone else. So he did a pretty good job with those outfits. And this cannot be denied. The chemistry that was there with John Ritter, of course with Jenny Lee Harrison and Priscilla Barnes, it was a very, very great chemistry that they did have, and that's rare. That does not happen in many shows. Even good shows, sometimes you can tell the chemistry is just off. But they were already running, and he kind of joined in, and he just worked with them perfectly. And that's not something that should be taken lightly. And finally, the last reason, remember, let me know in the comments below what you think, if you can come up with as many of these or as more if you're defending the Ropers, and that is the ratings. The ratings continued to stay high throughout the course of the show. Yes, 8th season was fairly low. It was one of the lowest. In fact, it wasn't a great season at all. But throughout the jump from the Ropers to Furley, you do see that the ratings are pretty high. They kind of even dwindle just a little bit, but they stay steady. The show did not rock bottom. In fact, there were some fabulous scripts, and believe it or not, without Furley, if he would have been a bomb for that show, they would have had to end it between the 5th or even the 6th season at the latest. But no, they continued all the way to 8, which is actually, he was on the show longer than the Ropers were ever on the show. Let me know your thoughts down below. Those are my reasons why I believe that Mr. Furley, the character, was better than the Ropers. We'll see you next time. Don't forget to look at my playlist focusing on Three's Company as well as other classic TV shows. We'll see you next time, and don't forget, guys and gals, be hopeful. Thank you so much to my Diamond tier patrons, Gary N, David D, Paul T, and Ricky. If you want to be named here in the credits, make sure to look at the link in the description, and you'll be able to receive more exclusive giveaways only on Patreon. We'll see you next time.